Should the Chicago Bears address the wide receiver 2 spot in free agency or the draft? So let's talk about this, people. What is going on? Y'all, Faiz Sports All back at it with another video talking, of course. It's NFL here to talk about the Chicago Bears and here to talk about one of their biggest and most pressing needs this offseason being that wide receiver 2 spot next to their stud wide receiver 1, DJ Moore. And I want to talk about, hey, does it make more sense for them to address it in free agency or the draft? And you might be thinking, Faiz, why not both? And yeah, you're right. But I think what they do in one will severely impact what they do in the other. Let me explain. So free agency comes first, then we have the draft. Well, if they splurge on a receiver in free agency, I don't know if they would go ahead and take a receiver at a premium draft position than in the draft, right? So let's go through some of these wide receivers that are free agents this upcoming offseason, or I should say this offseason. We're already in it right now. So here is the list. All right, so we've got guys at the top like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley. Then you got guys like Hollywood Brown, Gabe Davis, guys, lesser guys like a Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, and on and on. We have one of our own free agents, Darnell Mooney, but obviously I don't think the Bears are going to bring him back. Well, maybe they will, but I'm just not a big fan of it. I think Mooney, regressed, and I'm ready to kind of move on and find a more impactful guy to complement DJ Moore. So taking a look at this list, I do like some of these guys. My prototype for a wide receiver 2, he has to be a guy who's younger, who fits the timeline of a Justin Fields or a quarterback that they draft in a Caleb Williams. And I don't want one of these guys that are, their best years are behind them. And yeah, they might be in their prime, but they're on the back end of it, a little over the hill. So I'm sorry, but I don't want Mike Evans. Mike Evans has, been in the league for a long time, and he would certainly help a contender right now. And he would be excellent for, let's say, a team like the Chiefs, although they don't need anybody at this point. But my point is, Mike Evans is not going to be here with the Bears for the next, 7-8 years as a young receiver. I'm not saying Mike Evans is bad. I'm just saying the timeline for me doesn't fit. T. Higgins, to me, jumps at the top of the list. Absolute stud. He could be a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams. He would be incredible. Michael Pittman is also great. I like Michael Pittman a lot. I don't think he's as versatile as a T. Higgins, but certainly a very, very good receiver. Calvin Ridley is another guy as well. Ridley had a nice bounce-back season with the Jaguars, so I like him as well. The other guys that are kind of, in the lesser tier, like Boyd, Samuel, Hollywood, I don't care to get these guys. They're not bona fide wide receivers too. So basically, here's where I'm at. We don't even know if these guys will end up being free agents in the sense of maybe they just end up re-signing with their teams. But if you are able to land a T. Higgins or a Michael Pittman or a Calvin Ridley, but in that order, Higgins, Pittman, Ridley, because the dollar amount is going to matter, right? You're going to give the better guys more money. If you're able to land one of those, I'm good with it, especially T. Higgins. But if those 3 guys you strike out on, or they re-sign with their teams or with somebody else, I would rather wait for the draft than to overspend on one of these lesser free agents. That's not to say I don't want to sign anybody. We can certainly sign guys, but I want the guys that we do sign in free agency to be cost effective, to make financial sense for us, and to be good fits. But we're not splurging. I don't want to go over the top to sign some of these guys. So then you go ahead, draft comes around. Hey, you got the number 9 pick, and maybe the number 1 pick gets traded into more picks. And now you can get a guy like a Marvin Harrison. You can get a guy like a Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. You want to nab one of those 3 studs. Basically, Ryan Poles needs to know by the end of free agency and the draft, I need to have a bona fide wide receiver 2 locked up for my quarterback, whoever that is. I need one. I cannot go into next season with a Darnell Mooney or a Darnell Mooney type of receiver. All right? I need one of those guys. So to me, it's either those 3 studs in the draft, Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison. So if you end up with one of those 3, you don't need a T. Higgins or Pittman or Hollywood or Calvin Ridley. But if you don't end up with those, go after the Pittmans, go after the go after the T. Higgins, go after those guys. But again, free agency is going to come before the draft, so those decisions have to be made. So essentially, you want to go into the free agency. If you end up nabbing one of those top guys, then hey, we can go ahead and draft, different positions of need. But if you don't nab one of those, wide receiver 2 gets addressed. So that's how I would kind of play this. Put a gun to my head, I'm probably going to address it more in the draft than free agency. I just like to spend at more premium positions such as the offensive line, defensive line, those type of positions. But certainly, hey, T. Higgins, you want to come on down? We can pay you. I'd love that. He'd be a stud. Michael Pittman, you get my point. So that's how I do it, guys. Let me know what you guys think. How would you address the wide receiver 2 spot for the Bears? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts as well.